Hello, hello. Okay. We're live. Is the volume working? Yes, okay. All right. So, gonna give it a second. Let people get in here because I just posted everywhere. Today, I think gonna be talking about how I approach running pre-written adventures for D&D or other tabletop role-playing games. Yeah. Jason, Beer, what's up? So actually, before I jump into it, I think what I want to do is I just got a whole bunch of stuff in the mail, a whole bunch of really awesome stuff in the mail. And I thought it'd be fun to, especially since I'm talking about running pre-written adventures, it'd be cool if I like actually showed one that I think is really cool. So, this is The Undying Sands. And it's not a book, but it's very cool. This is actually, the whole thing is on this DM screen. So this big artwork on the DM screen, and then on the back it has everything you need to run the game. It's like how to do it. All the locations are kind of like in the middle, and then there's this big city with a bunch of locations and stuff. It's all right here. Like, that is so cool. I thought that is a super fun way of presenting. Basically, this is just a setting, a system neutral game. So it's not like there's a bunch of rules and stuff on here. This is all like it's actually a hex scrawl. So let me show you the other part. So it comes with this little bag, and here's a map of the city, and then on the other side there's like, this is one of the dungeons. I should say it's completely illustrated by an old comics friend of mine named Kevin Cannon, and he does like the best maps. This is like the coolest maps. And then the other part, it's actually a hex scrawl through this desert. So I haven't punched these out yet, but these are like cardboard, like board game hex tiles, and you put them in the bag. And so when you start playing, one of the players just reaches in and pulls out a hex, and they build the desert as you go. And each of the tiles is like numbered. So there's blank tiles that have random encounters, and then there's numbered tiles that have like 3 different locations per hex, and each of the locations is written out on the back of this DM screen, and that's it. And it's like, this is a super cool like just a cool way of presenting a setting, an adventure. And it's it's a hex scrawl, and there's just like a bunch of factions and encounters and stuff, so there's not really a story to it, which I think is super awesome. It's just like what the players decide they want to get up to, and then they get into trouble and things start going wrong because there's factions that all want things, and the players are going to get in the way of what the factions want. And if they join up with one faction, that means the other faction's going to hate them. Like, super cool. Literal sandbox RPG. So yeah, super awesome artwork, maps. very streamlined. I think you kind of have to be a pretty confident dungeon master to run this because, you know, there's no stats, there's no, it's pretty bare bones, but I think that's also like super awesome because, you know, it leaves a lot up to your imagination, and you can kind of make it feel however you want. So yeah, the Undying Sands, super cool. Just got it. I think I got it from Exalted Funeral. So yeah, the Undying Sands. I guess, dude, I have so much other cool stuff that I got, and I need to show. I want to read some of it first. Like, I've skimmed this. I want to read a lot. I haven't read most of what I've got, so I need to read some stuff, and then I'll start sharing things. So I guess follow me on Instagram and Twitter. That's probably where I'm gonna be sharing stuff. So yeah. Okay, yeah, what's up, Lucas? And Jason Finlatch? Okay, Jay, how do you go about addressing something you neglected to read if your players encounter something earlier than you expected and you hadn't prepared by reading through the whole setting? That's a good question. Thank you, Anime Thoughts. Let me, okay, yeah, I should answer that before I jump into showing off the new adventure that just got published. Okay, so let me stick with me here, Jason. Finlock. Okay, yeah. Oh, dude, Patrick. How's it going? Okay, so I just released my first monthly adventure on Patreon. Let me click over to it here. Let me see if this works. Yeah. Okay. So, Flick Silverpin's Guide to the Shadespeare Mountains. It is you. Okay, so here's the deal. If you sign up for Patreon, you have access to the digital version, but this was the September adventure. So if you jump into Patreon now and back, you'll since it's October now, you'll be signing up for the October adventure, which I'll talk about as we go through this Shadespeare Mountain. But you can still download the digital version, and I gotta figure it out, but I'm gonna set up like a Patreon shop. So if you're a patron, you'll have access to the shop where you can buy old adventures in physical form. Just downloaded it. Yes. Thank you, Colin. Okay, so Jason, he streams, he runs D&D and streams it, and he started running Dragontown, and it was awesome to watch. I just lurked in the shadows and watched him run Dragontown for his group. And I mean, I don't think, like, honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal that you forgot that there were vines around the, you know, so there's these in the Dragontown adventure, there's these vines that are keeping people out of the castle. They're making it hard for people to get into the castle. So part of the adventure is figuring out how to get around these poisonous vines. But there's like slimes, and there's other stuff. How to approach it when they come back. I mean, I think just let him into the castle, and then... So I'll be specific with the answer, and then I'll kind of step back. And I think just let him in. I mean, you could just put the thorns around the inner part of the castle. Like, they can get through the front gate into the courtyard, and there's the little thorn dudes running around, protecting it. But then there's also thorns around the dragon's tower and the main part of the castle. That's probably what I would do if you want to add the thorns. But also, you could just let him in and, you know, they've already done the slimes. His players have already fought off the slimes. They've already met the alley cats. You know, like that's basically, when I ran it for my friends, that's basically all they did too. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I haven't planned this at all. I haven't, like most of the live streams, I haven't completely thought this through, because if I really sit and think things through, that's when I like make a video on it. I just went blank. Oh yeah, so bear with me as I go through this and have thoughts on running pre-written adventures. They already tried to kill the alley cats by blowing up the bakery. I mean, that's one way to do it. That's one way to do it. So, okay, so I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through at least the beginning portion of this adventure, give you an idea of what I'm making every month, and then let me see if I go like this. Yeah, okay. If I go like that. What am I'm thoughts are happening. Am I allowed to say anything on the new game I'm making? Yeah. So if you stick with me, basically my approach to the Patreon adventures is, at least for the next few months, it's a continuation of the Dragontown adventure. So you can start with the Dragontown zine, start at level 1, get up to level 3 or 4, and then you can jump into the Shadespeare Mountains. And then next month will be the next adventure, and you can kind of continue along the way. But also, these work great as standalone adventures. So, here, why don't we start it off? Maybe. There we go. Okay. So this is the map of the Shadespeare Mountains. So this first month is a point crawl through the mountains. And if your players, like, just if they want to go from, you have a campaign going and you don't have anything planned and you need to get your players from point A to point B, and there's a mountain range in between, Shadespeare Mountains works great as a adventure to plop into your campaign. Or it can be a one-shot. If you want to just make it a one-shot, it works. There's a little story that unfolds in here. So, I'll go through the Shadespeare Mountains adventures, and then you'll sort of get an idea of where it's leading, as we go through it. So here's the map. Did I say it was a point crawl? So like each of these locations is listed in the zine, and then the idea is like it takes a day to travel from point to point. So this is the first, I mean, I guess technically this is the first spread, but then you flip the page and this is the first spread of the zine. Thank you, Anime Thoughts. So there's a little introduction, adventure hooks. So like I said, you can run this as a one shot and like use one of the adventure hooks and say like, hey, you know, this is what you guys are doing. Let's run through this. Now, I should say the little box here on the left, to Jason's point, I do recommend that you read through the entire zine before running it. And two reasons for that. Or like, I guess this is something that I've been learning as I've been writing these adventures, is that it is extremely difficult to have all of the information up front. I think now, okay, the reason I'm saying in this one it's important to read through the entire adventure is because I didn't do a lot of the things that I did in the Dragontown zine up front, because this is only I guess technically this is only 10 pages of actual text for this adventure. So it's shorter, it's easier to read through the entire thing in one, like you can read it in less than 15 minutes and have an idea of what it's going to be. So I don't feel like it needs a like a list of everything that's going on. I tried to make Dragontown so you can, you know, you read how the adventure goes and the setup and all of that, maybe the first few pages, and then you're good to go. Now, to Jason's point, again, like, you can forget things, but I don't think that's that big of a deal. Like, you can, you know, you're a DM, you're creative, you can make it, you can make it how you want, adjust and change things, and I think I'm saying all this as like someone who's now written 2 adventures for other people to run. So like I'm still learning, right? I'm still trying to get better because what I found out with Dragontown was I was confident as a DM to telling stories and like running people through a cohesive story and all of that. But maybe I wasn't as confident as an adventure writer, and it's like a whole nother set of skills. That seems like a weird. It's different. Writing something for other people to run is different than writing something for you to run. What just happened? I heard noises. I think maybe somebody followed me on Twitch and it made a noise, because that's still set up. Still learning as a DM too. That's part of. I mean, we're all still learning to be DMs, and I think what I'm gonna get at with talking through this adventure is that all this stuff in the adventure is just framework, right? And so like, let's take a look here. So I have the 3 like factions of the Shadespeare Mountains here written out. So the Shadespeare Orcs, the Ravenwood Brigands, and the Talathon. So the orcs are they're powerful warriors that fly around on griffins, and they protect the mountains, their home. They take it very seriously, and they're good at it, and they live in a cool city above the clouds. And then there are these Talathons that are like, think of them as like rock treants, maybe. They're like part of the mountains. They're just giant boulder people, right? They've been there forever, and they kind of don't care about what's going on in the mountains so much, because they're the mountains, and like little mortal people traveling here and there like doesn't really concern them. But now that the darkness below is stirring, it's making them a little uneasy. And then there's the Ravenwood Brigands, and that's who's messing everything up. So these elves from the Ravenwood have come in, and they are like starting to steal from people. They've stolen an artifact from one of the orcs that has them upset, and they're starting to mess with the darkness below, and that's making the Talathon, the rock creatures, upset too. So that's kind of those are the factions, and I think by just knowing that, by reading these 2 pages, kind of get an idea of what's going on. And then everything else, if you know the like general story, everything else is flexible. So I think about like when I ran the Lost Mines of Phandelver, right? Basically all you need to know is that there's this town, there's some bandits in there that are causing trouble, and that the reason they're causing trouble is there's this old mine that has some magic stuff in it that bad guys want. And so as long as you know that, you can kind of run it. And it's because it's like everything that's happening, whether it's Shadespire Mountains or in Phandelver, is all kind of points back to this central conflict, right? So we go on to the next page. How do I do this? So I've got a bunch of random encounters. Because it's a point crawl, there's weather to deal with. There's some environmental stuff to deal with. But even the random encounters, like you don't necessarily have to read through these random encounters. As long as you're comfortable, like, having the monster manual over to the side and like thinking of some things on the fly. Then you can just go for it, right? So like some of the random encounters, let's see. My approach to this is that, like I said, it all kind of points, it either is like a fun encounter that sets the tone of the adventure, or it points to, it like moves the story along. It gives the players information about things that they might need to know if they want to deal with the trouble in the Shadespire Mountains, right? So like a shadow cat stalking them, that shadow cat's not going to tell them anything about the Ravenwood Brigands. But a young orc trying to tame a griffin as a rite of passage, they might have some information about like what's the deal with the Shadespeare orcs, you know. So yeah, that's how I'm approaching random encounters. Whether it's all just flavor to add some challenge, make things a little more interesting for the players, because you know it's a harsh environment. And then it gets into the actual points, the locations of the mountain. So right off the southern entry, there's these two halflings that are delivering a cart of magic apples, and they got robbed. Like right out the gate, they got robbed by these brigands. And so that's kind of like the very first point on the map where you start is they're getting like they're about to be eaten by a griffin. So it like gets the players into the idea anyway, is it gets the players right into the action. You know, there's a dangerous griffin that is about to eat these two halflings that are tied up to a giant rock. And they're gonna have some information about what's going on, and they have a quest for you, you know, right as you need to get through the mountains, but you also want to like recover these people's cart full of apples and their two donkeys, right? So, okay, so the random encounters, if your players are quick with their next decision as far as what to do next, do you still do the encounter? Do you let them run? Okay, great question. So I say, like, here I say roll a d12 in between locations. And then, you know, so like the idea is you give your players this map and you let them, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, you let them choose their way through the mountains. And I'm saying, like, when you go from point to point, it takes a day, so roll a random encounter. Excuse me. There's two things I think about. So, like, one is, let's say your players, you know, they have played through Dragontown. They want to go, their mission is to go straight to the underground and find the darkness below. Like, that's what they really want to do. They start at this southern entry point. They meet these two halflings that say, like, can you please help us retrieve our apples? And they're not that into it. They just want to go, your players just want to go get underground. Maybe just move it along, you know? It's you know, maybe when you roll on the random table and there's more stuff about the brigands, like maybe you just skip it. If you roll, or maybe you want to get them hooked. So instead of rolling, you say, okay, they travel a day down the path and they get ambushed by the brigands, and now they're hooked into setting things right. So you kind of feel it out. The other part is just pacing of the game. Like if you're trying to run through this in one night, one play session, maybe you don't do any random encounters, you know, or maybe it's all stuff like number 2, a griffin flies low overhead, it definitely saw you. That's the only, you know, like, or the shadow cat, like one of the players notices that there's a shadow cat stalking them, so when they camp for the night, they're probably going to keep watch, and the shadow cat just doesn't mess with them because they're keeping watch. You know, you can make them quicker, I guess. You know, so maybe they don't get into fights or something if you're trying to be faster. So like pacing is the other thing I would consider. And then just the feeling, like what how's it feel, you know? What if you wanted to steal said apples? So yeah, that actually perfectly gets me into the next part of what I want to talk about, is that I think how most things are written. Now, some of the official D&D stuff that I've read is a little more follow along. It assumes that your players are going to follow along and be good guys. Do like we're going to fight monsters here. The monsters are going to tell us something, so we know we need to go here. There's more monsters to fight. We're going to find out about this villain. So now we got to make a choice. Do we go with this villain or that villain? You know, go fight some more monsters and kind of like you know, go down the path, which I think is the same. Like there's the path of this adventure like leads to this Far Falls. I'm pointing at the screen as if you can see me pointing it. The Far Falls location is actually the Ravenwood Brigands hideout. So I've blurred out the ending portion of this, so there's no like big spoilers. But there's like this final dungeon where you kind of find the Brigands hideout, and it's also a way further underground. It's a secondary way into the underground. And there's a whole like story of what's going on here. But so there is like that path that you can follow in here, but then there's also like all of the other stuff that's just happening that, you know, the players can decide whether they want to steal the apples or ignore or, you know, do whatever they want, you know? And depending on what they do changes how the people and creatures that live in these mountains react to them. And I think that's the cool part. Yeah. Okay, let me catch up here. When players deviate, I mean, so like, that's a good, let me think about that for a second. When players, I mean, I kind of expect players to maybe not deviate, but I mean, I'm always surprised by the players. So like, and I think if you're running an adventure that is a setting, like in this case, and most of the like D&D books and I mean most adventures are like a setting, right? That if they deviate, you have the tools to like be ready. And it's kind of like going back to that very first thing that Jason brought up, like the vines aren't around the outer walls of the castle. It's like you can kind of create obstacles and objectives, and you know, like all of those tools should be there to deal with deviations. So like, I'm trying to think of an example of what might happen. in the Shadespire Mountains. I don't know. I would love to see somebody actually run this. Always under the assumption that they'll deviate and the story happens to come back around. Yeah, yeah. Right. And that's so, like, okay, I just filmed a new video that's gonna go up in a few days, and it's all about like how I approach running session 0, because I'm about to start. Like, I didn't get to play test the Shadespire Mountains, but I'm gonna start play testing all the Patreon adventures before they are finished. So I gotta get that started. And I'm about to do a session 0. I'm gonna make characters with some friends and all that. Excuse me. So, oh shoot, what was I gonna say? Why did I bring that up? Oh, assuming that they'll deviate. So I think part of my prep for session 0 is I say, okay, like I give the players their objective, right? So in this case, you know, you could start this whole thing off with, like, I think, yeah, even one of the adventure hooks is a magical item was taken from the adventurers by the Prince of the Ravenwood Elves. He was last seen headed into the Shadespire Mountains. Like, I could give that to, yes, I know, Kyle. What's up, by the way? Like, I would give them their, like, main objective up front. And that's, like, part of the agreement of running the game. How they get there, deviate away, right? How you decide you're gonna retrieve your magical item from these elves, like, that part I don't. However you want to do it, go for it. That's the fun part. But by setting it up, like, you know, so if you're running, you know, I think actually, it's cause I've thought so much, because I wrote Dragontown as like my starting adventure, and I think the best starting adventure is Lost Mines of Phandelver, of the official D&D stuff. So I've thought about it so much, and I think one of the weaknesses of that adventure is that it doesn't give a good hook right away. Like, it has, you just get hired by, forget the dwarf's name, to like transport his stuff to Phandalin or something, and it's like, and then you get ambushed, and it's like, it's okay, I guess. I actually forget how maybe I did just run it like that, and it took a while for the players to get invested. So I think, like, if you're gonna run something, if you can get the players invested in the I don't want to say the plot, because they create the plot. The I don't know how to say it. If you could get them invested, like, just in the setting, you know, somehow they're connected to one of these groups, or they have a good reason for being there, they don't want to just leave. That's what you need. It's got a strong start with the ambush, but the hook is kind of missing. Yeah, exactly. You just show up at town and then talk to a bunch of quest givers. Right. Yeah, and you know, I'm thinking about it, and I guess in Dragontown, the whole thing is the dragon is missing, the mayor is missing, the blah 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 blah, the giant dragon mare is missing, and I thought that maybe that was like the mystery is enough to hook people. And I think it, like in Phandelver, the mystery of this mine doesn't become clear until a little bit later. Like, you got to interact with the Red Brand ruffians and like do a few quests before you really start to get an idea of what this mine is all about. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to think about here. And now I'm trying to remember like some of the other adventures that I've read that have, I don't know. I think because I'm thinking of this session 0 stuff, I'm just thinking like it's important to have your players know ahead of time what their mission is, and then, you know, anything else, you know, and then you'll sort of hook them as you go, right? But just saying like, hey, here's this one thing. Hired by a Merton is a bit tropey, yeah. I don't mind the trope. The what's another, the cliche stuff. I don't like, you know, starting in an inn. I don't mind. I always think starting in an inn's kind of boring. So like that's why the first thing, like originally when I was writing this southern entry, it was just like you come upon these two halflings that are tied up to a rock, and they say, hey, we've been, like, let us out, we've been tied up. And it's like, okay, like that's good, but then them being about to be eaten by a griffin, that's a little more dangerous, a little more, you know, a little more exciting, I think. But yeah, I kind of like the I think cliches can make players feel like comfortable, sometimes in a good way. Yeah, so Patrick, session 1 ends with the group getting TPK'd, and the real session 1 begins with them trying to escape hell and get back. I mean, that's I would just start session 1 with them trying to escape hell. Like, I don't know that I would want to just TPK the players right off the bat, like for real session 1. I would maybe start with the hook like, hey, you guys were a group of adventurers. You ran into this dungeon. There's this crazy lich. You wanted to take him out to save the land, and the lich took you out, and now you're stuck in hell and you still got work to do. That's maybe how I would start that. Jason, that makes me very happy to hear that they got the general hook, and then I think so. Like, I've written these locations in this, and I think that's my philosophy for writing adventures, DMing in general, is just like throw cool stuff out and see what the players are into, because like that is where I feel like when we say players deviate, like you never know what your players are gonna get hooked into. Like one of the games, actually the Phandelver game that I ran, and then it went on to this whole big other campaign, like they rescued a goblin, and this goblin like became part of the party and like traveled with them, and a big part of the campaign became like taking care of this goblin and making sure that like you know, how this goblin was treated doesn't happen to other people. And that's basically what the campaign became. And like, it's just a random goblin in one of the dungeons in Phandelver, and it like became the story of this whole campaign. And so you never know those things. So like right now I'm looking at this old tower section, and this, well, I'll talk about like why this part isn't, this like has no reason really to be in this book other than to just be a cool encounter. A cool encounter. Is that what I said? And so like I wanted to give, so I was thinking about I'm gonna circle, I'm gonna get to the point eventually. I was thinking about ways of giving, how do I say this? So like if you're a DM that's like picking this up and you want to run this adventure, like how do you, I want the players to have fun, of course, but then I also want the DM to have fun running this. So I think I'm going to start throwing in these little things in all these adventures, just of like some cool NPCs that are just there so the DM can have fun running them. So the idea is there's this old tower. It's got these two crow people sitting up at the top of this tower, and as the players come by, what's up, Chini? These two crows are just like looking down at them, and they just start heckling them. And my idea is like they're the Statler and Waldorf of the Muppets. You know, they're just up there like heckling. And I think that would be super fun to run. You know, you like just pick out and then like how you're like, I don't know how the players are gonna, I'm sure the players aren't gonna be happy about that, but then who like knows what's gonna happen? Like I have no clue. It could just be a fun, like as the players are passing, or it could turn into the whole campaign, you know? So I think that you know, having, like I said, throwing like fun stuff at the players, they're gonna pick up what they really like, and then that is how you take a pre-written adventure and you just pay attention to what your players are into, and you take that and run with it as the DM. So, you know, maybe it's these crow people. What's on the next page? So like the orcs, here's the orc city, and there's no way up to it. I mean, like maybe you could climb up to it, but then you'd just be invading this city filled with orcs after you just climb this crazy mountain that's like covered in clouds. But really, like the only way to get there is if you're riding on the back of a griffin. And so like maybe the players like decide, hey, I super want to get into this city. So how do I get in there? You know, and what stuff is there? And there's just a little block of text about what the city is like. But maybe this orc city becomes the player's home base for the rest of the campaign, you know? And they get awarded griffins, and they can fly all over the place on the back of griffins, and like that's super awesome. And if I was the player, that's what I would want. You know? Didn't know I did live streams. Hey, thanks. Yeah, I don't do scheduled live streams. Just, you know, when I feel like it. Victor, love the heckler idea. Yeah, it's just fun. Like, as DMs, we want to have fun too, you know? We want to, like, and I that's something that, I'm going to try in next month's adventure. I'm going to try and, like, have a few more interesting NPCs. So, like, if we go, oh, I have it blurred out. Okay. So, like, this orc got captured. And I kind of tried to make him interesting, you know, like, honestly, this whole thing, this whole Shadespeare Mountains adventure is like just to flip the stereotypical orc and elf cliche, right? So, like, if we go back and look at the, you know, this magical looking city on top of a cloud covered mountain, like, that's an orc city. And the elves live in the Ravenwood. They live in the gloomy forest. And so, yeah, it's like, you know, the orcs, they live in these big, like, communal houses, and nobody has, there's no shops. It's just, you know, crafting centers is what I call them, where clothes are made, food is grown and cooked, tamed griffins are tended, and weapons are forged. And they're like, I mean, it's basically just a flip of, like, a stereotypical elf and a stereotypical orc. You know, the elves are like these like crappy, dirty punk, like punk in a bad way. Elves. So it's blurred out right here, but that's the leader elf, the prince who stole the amulet. And then I guess, yeah, so I guess, oh yeah, so I was saying, right, so I was saying that, like, this orc, and then the prince, like the prince elf, I don't want to spoil anything, but he would be very fun to run, just because he's so, like, petulant and just shitty. Like, he's just, he's a fun bad guy. So the idea, I'm trying to, what I'm saying is, I'm trying to, in these monthly adventures, trying to add in some cool characters that I think would be fun to run. There's plenty of fun NPCs in Dragontown, but I want some, like, really fun ones. I'm gonna try and avoid just I mean, there's definitely, like, some basic NPCs in there. There's Cobblegut, an old grumpy giant, who doesn't wish to fight and just likes eating the Talathons, the giant rock creatures. You know, that's pretty standard mean giant. I don't know, that's still fun though. Like I said, I like some cliches sometimes. Cobblegut. Yeah, right? Okay. I spend so long I spend more time thinking about the names of things than I do, like, actually writing all of it. So here I was telling JC, like, this is a perfect example of how I like to name things, and how I name these characters, like, came so easily, and it made me so happy, because usually I agonize over the names of things for no reason, really. Yeah, so yeah, Jason, you get it. His name's Cobblegut. He's old. He's an old giant and enjoys eating rocks. Like, I mean, it's. I feel like giants and dragons, they should have those names that kind of, like, tell you what's up. Maybe. So here's the stone moot section. So these Talathons, the giant rock creatures, are getting together to decide what they should do about the return of this darkness below thing, right? So these huge giant rock creatures that are usually solitary are like getting together, and there's 3 different ones. So Morfog believes that they should just peace out of the mountains, right? Sedegar thinks that they should just go to sleep, and like in 1,000 years it'll all be back to normal. And then Igneok thinks that they should join with the orcs and fight and protect their homeland, right? And so I'm trying to think of the names of these rock creatures. And so I look up like, okay, what are some names of rocks? Because I don't know anything about rocks. And it turns out there's 3 different types of rocks. There's oh gosh, what are I've distorted them. Let me look it up here. Types of rocks. So I googled what are here it is. So there's igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. And I'm researching rocks now, and then I get to, and it's like telling me all about like what a metamorphosis type of rock and a sedimentary type of rock. I was like, wait, these are exactly the like the only characteristics of these rock creatures are that one wants to peace out, one wants to stay and go to sleep, and one wants to fight. So like Sedegar is the sedimentary rock. He just wants to like go to sleep. And then igneous, it's like made from molten stuff. And so he wants to fight, and it like worked perfectly. I'm like, yes, finally an easy name, an easy way to name things. These made up creatures. Yes, it's like perfect. And then, I was, let's see, up on the first page, I have a list of a few orc, elf, and Talathon names. And so all of the Talathon names are like based on different types of rocks. So Corvar is quartz. I don't even remember what all of them are because, like I said, I don't know anything about rocks. But yeah, naming stuff is agonizing. And so like in Dragontown, there's a bunch of halflings, and I have a nice convention for naming halflings. But like orcs in this one, not totally happy with the orc names, because I used what's the Lord of the Rings orc language? Black speech. And I feel like these orcs don't, they speak orcish, which is black speech, but that does not feel right. So they have orc kind of names, but then I don't know. So not totally happy with, and I'm never totally happy with the names. So yeah, do you guys have questions about Shadespire Mountains? Or I feel like maybe I haven't articulated what I originally set out to talk about in this, but maybe that's okay too, because it's been fun talking. So yeah, a lot of what is in this adventure, your players can take it or leave it. If they're just trying to get through the mountains, I feel like that's an easy, like if you drop this into your campaign and it's just trying to get through the mountains, they already have that goal of like getting to the other side, then they don't need to go underground. But there's a lot of things that are pointing to going underground, which is where the next adventure picks up. So if you see the entrance to the underground, a narrow tunnel leading underground to the Plum Wax Kobold's caverns. Flick Silverpin Guide number 3, and beyond. So yeah, next, I guess this month's October's adventure is going to be Flick Silverpin's Guide to the Plum Wax Kobolds. And I guess all I'm going to say about it is that there are a bunch of crazy kobolds. There's going to be another dragon, sort of. And there's going to be a lot of fun traps. I've been thinking about how to approach traps in a fun way. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of what these monthly adventures are going to be is just like stuff I think is cool. Right? And so I just want to write about a bunch of crazy, dirty little maniac kobolds. And so that's what I'm writing about. And part of that is like, so I think in a similar way, the same way. So it's going to be a dungeon now instead of a point crawl. But then like each corridor, so there's going to, well, I don't want to give away too much. Each corridor leading from room to room is going to be trapped. Because that's how kobolds work. And so it's a lot of, and then maybe every room has a trap in it too. But I'm not doing like, yeah, I guess there'll be like tripwire, poison dart kind of stuff. I get maybe, but really I want it to be like, you're walking through a corridor and you see, what's the one the alley cats. I really like that trap. It's just a hanging bottle. And if you bump it, it comes uncorked, falls to the ground, and poisonous gas comes out. So like easily avoidable. But then like you could almost use that trap against, if somebody's chasing you back down the hallway, you get spotted and you run back down the hallway. Maybe an archer, in the party shoots the trap and unleashes the poison on the people chasing you. It's stuff like that. Or, puzzles and traps, I think, have a bad rap in D&D. And my goal for next month is to think of some fun stuff to make traps. Either puzzles, we'll see. Actually, puzzles I might save. Now I'm thinking puzzles I might save for later. Lots of traps. It's gonna be traps everywhere. Good hook for next time on. Yeah. So like, yeah, yep. Continue the adventure one off. Like, I mean, how easy is it you just need a kobold dungeon to run as a one-shot, like perfect. Or it can be the first layer of the mega dungeon. So if the characters decide not to go underground, how do we keep them in the Flick Silverpin universe? Ooh. That's a good question. I think so. The end of this adventure has these blurred out. I mean, you can basically see what they are. These blurred out. They're called Darkspawn, and they are pieces of the darkness below. I don't want to spoil too much. But you could have them start to come out from underground and start to cause trouble, and like you just keep pointing them underground. I'm gonna keep that in the back of my mind though. How to keep things moving forward And by forward, I mean down. You need to have a kobold that snickers in the distance when a trap goes off. Yes, I like that. I like that. Yeah, there's gonna be fun. I'm excited. There's gonna be some fun stuff. Have it pulled up so you can read them. Oh, your anti-dwarf character will try to avoid the underground. I haven't even thought about having a bunch of orcs. Or, sorry, having a bunch of dwarves down under there. I don't know that there's going to be any. You gotta give him what does he love more than he hates dwarves? Does that make sense? There's got to be something that he wants more than he hates. And put that underground, then he'll go. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if you have any other questions, hit me with them. I think, like I said, I don't know that if I answered what I originally set out to answer, but I think this has helped me solidify some ideas, and maybe I need to spend the time and like write an actual video about running pre-written adventures, because that's what I'm making now, and I hope that what I'm making is easy to run. I hope. I think Dragontown is. I think there's a lot of things I learned from it, but I think it's all there. And now that I'm doing it month by month, I hope that I can keep all those lessons and keep it going, because I want to make stuff that's actually useful. So yeah. Oh boy. So maybe there needs to be dwarves underground. All right. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Jason. Okay, dudes. Well, this was fun. Thank you for listening to me blab for an hour. The Shadespeare Mountains, like I said, if you sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/JPCoovert, you have instant access to the Shadespeare Mountains. You can download this, get the PDF, run it. I'm gonna send tomorrow. I'm doing another proofread and then sending it off to the printer. So people, if you became a patron in September at the legend level, then you'll get a physical copy of the Shadespeare Mountains. And then if you sign up at the legend, and then it'll get to you mid-October is what I'm trying to say. And then if you sign up in October, Flick Silverpint's Guide to the Plum Wax Kobolds. Traps, dirty maniac kobolds, dragon, something. It's gonna be good. We had to run your one shot of the resurrection since oh, that's awesome. Nice. Okay. Yeah, thank you all so much for hanging out. If for some reason you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and do that. I got a video coming out about session 0 soon. And yeah, I appreciate all of you watching the videos, becoming patrons, running the adventures. That's so awesome. Oh, and the other thing, I set up a Discord. So if you become a patron, it automatically throws you into the Discord. There's like a low level support where you can get into the Discord and stuff. I want to keep it small, and for people who care. So it's patrons only right now, but it's awesome so far. It's like the coolest. There's lots of excellent people in there already. So become a patron, join the Discord, all that good stuff. And yes, thank you all so much. I will see you soon. All right. Goodbye. See you.